how was the journey in finding your first product market fit in the MSME market? Let's start with Hiro. Okay, so let's move to the next question. But before I go to the next question, if any of the viewers want to ask question, please write on the left bottom corner of the web application. And also you can ask in Chakap application and also in YouTube. We'll compile it and then we'll ask the question toward the end. So the second question is, what are the challenges in the MSME market? Can we start with Krishnan?
Sure. I mean, so it's a very, I mean, there's two sides, right? One is generally there are a lot of challenges, and now with COVID, a lot of very specific COVID-related challenges have come up, right? So I'll start with the former, which is I mean, again, let's talk about challenges from the MSME's perspective, right? Like, I mean, many of them have decent, good businesses, but they are completely off the radar of the financial ecosystem or the banking ecosystem or even the government's ecosystem to an extent. So these are people about whom nobody knows anything, right? And there are a lot of negatives because of that. Like, I mean, when it comes to grants, when it comes to giving them support financially or not, the government struggles to do that because these guys are completely black, right? So like nobody knows anything. So that's the root cause challenge on one side, and on the other side, these are people who contribute so much part of the GDP, but they are not upgrading. They're not yet. They have a willingness, but they don't have the tools, etc., to upgrade themselves, right? Like so they all use WhatsApp, they all have smartphones, etc. But the products and tech, which is generally built, and it's normal, but things that have been built over the last 8 years, which is let's call it the phase one of Indonesia, right? Like the phase one of tech digitization in Indonesia has been very focused on Jakarta, very focused on the millennial Jakarta consumer primarily, or the tier one city MSME, right? So essentially, the standard strategy that is going on in the market is, hey, I have a tool, a big company like maybe Prasetia can use it, and then you give the same tool to the small guy and tell him, okay, you use the same tool, but it's in the mobile phone, right? Like it doesn't work like that. Fundamentally, people don't think, like, it's not easy for them, right? So that is the number one thing I felt has been going on for a long time, which is natural evolution. The other part is with COVID, right? I mean, with COVID coming in, now merchants have a desperate need for, obviously, it's starting, at least at one point, it was a survival thing much more than anything else. We've seen many people suffer. Obviously, the beauty of MSME sector is that they're the biggest survivors in the world, right? Like they survive any sort of I mean, they survived 2008, they'll survive pandemic, they'll survive everything. The resilience is high. But having said that, they need to digitize now, they need to upgrade because people don't go to shops as often and things are changing, right? So adapting to that new world is their new challenge. Again, goes back to lack of access of resources, tools, etc., that they can fast track that process.
Okay, thank you, Krishnan. How about you, Hiro?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear Krishnan's perspective on the challenges he sees in his customer segment, which I'm guessing is more on the micro and small side, and the challenges that we see on Wallex, which is on the larger M's, maybe larger S's, right? And I think, Krishnan made a good point on the solutions provided to big companies like Prasetia doesn't trickle down or doesn't, fit with the kind of kiosks and the waterlooms and so forth, and which I think is true. So I mean, I would say the challenges we do see challenges, but a different set of challenges, right? I think one very clear example was, for example, like Indonesian banks don't offer certain currencies, and there's a lot of trade, especially Southeast Asian currencies, and there's a lot of trade intra-Southeast Asia, right? And we saw this pretty interesting trend when COVID hit, was that a lot of businesses started importing masks, right? And masks from Vietnam. Right? And I guess the only way to send money to Vietnam was in USD. But we started offering Vietnamese dong to these importers, and they just kind of the adoption rate was pretty good on that, because we were the only, I would say, provider in Indonesia that offered Vietnamese dong, right? So challenges on limited bank offerings is something that we see, and of course, like being large M's enterprises. So we even have listed companies as some of our customers. They like service, right? So I think some of the things that some of the challenges that I guess that we saw was that, just like any other kind of underserved SME, right? They felt that they were being underserved by the banks, by their existing provider or whatever, and we tried to address those. I've always told my salespeople, like, when you walk into a restaurant and the waiter asks you, like, you order for your first time, you feel like a normal customer, right? But then when you walk in frequently, and the waiter comes to you, greets you by your name, and say, "Oh, the usual," and understands your profile, understands your needs. I think that's a premium customer experience that you get. So that's the kind of solution that we try to provide to address some of these, I would say, needs more than challenges of these large M's, even enterprise type of customers. So it's really refreshing to hear the challenges that you face, Krishnan.
Our segment is definitely not the larger of the small SMEs, but we are in the mid to small of the small SMEs. Very much. Yeah.
But it's interesting, because I think both are underserved by the banks, but from Krishnan's side, it's more they're unbankable. But for Wallex, is that the bank is just not providing enough services for them. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
In Indonesia, I think there has been a heavy concentration by the banks on I call it the milking the cow, right? I mean, they are very happy with the cow that's been giving milk, and they keep feeding that cow and milking it and forever, right? So, but now the government, the regulator, everybody wants more cows, or rather, like, to spread that effort wider. And I'm already seeing big banks being under the pressure to do that from the regulator, and this will trickle down. I think next 20 years there'll be a lot more. I mean, I find it really funny in India versus Indonesia. Indonesia is 2 times the GDP per capita of India. So it's back when I left for Indonesia in 2013, my mom thought I'm going to Somalia or Ethiopia or something, but and I come here and I tell my mom, like, this place is way better. Back home is shit, So Indonesia is a way better country in a lot of senses. But somehow in India, you will not find a person without a bank account. 80% people have a bank account. Whereas here, 1 out of 3 people don't have a bank account, right? So there's a long way to go in the financial side of things, which in our view starts with technology, and then you go step by step.
Yeah. So for BukuKas, it's more the unbanked, but for Wallex, is probably they're already bankable, but they're not being served very well. Is that right, Hiro?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, just to give you an example, right, on how they're being underserved. Let's say company A, they do at least $1 million in transaction every month, but one day, they want to do a $5,000 transfer. The bank just jacks up the rate, even though they know that they do $1 million, right? So for us, if we know they're doing a certain size, we give the same rate no matter if you're doing a $500 transaction or a $500,000 transaction. And that for the customer is reassuring because they don't have to go check on other rates. They know that Wallex will give the best rate no matter how big or small their transaction size is. Yeah.
And so I understand. I mean, like in a way, the cost percentage-wise is higher compared to the bigger companies, I guess, right?
Yeah,
because you would have like that fixed cost, like the minimum cost or something, right? To do transfer.
Yeah, and I mean, I think banks historically their business model is built on top of costs, right? They've got branches to run, they have people, compliance, so all these costs add up, and they just need to kind of, as Krishnan mentioned, milk the cow somewhere. And FX is a very, very profitable business for them.
Yeah. But I think the lesson learned, I mean, like from these problems, or that because of these problems, your solutions can have this solution. I mean, like it can become the solution for this SMEs, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Hiro. Thank you, Krishnan. So let me hand over to Ardi for the next questions.
All right. So next question: does the changing behavior affect your business? If yes, how does it affect you? So let's start with Hiro.